Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. We're on a different time. Everything is helter skelter because I know I took a 2 week hiatus off. I was out advocating cross country and it took me a little while to bounce back and recover. And today was crazy and this week was crazy. And so tonight's a special night. We're going to talk about some topics that all of us as survivors, no matter what kind of cancer we have, we tend to experience these emotions. And they're quite difficult to deal with. And I've been grappling with them lately. The past couple of weeks have been very emotional and lots of ups and downs and sideways and diagonals and all of it. So, welcome to Blue Couch Chat. Welcome to my living room. I'm glad to have you. And I am Shannon Leeson. I am your host, and I'm also a 12-year colon cancer survivor. I was diagnosed at 29 after having symptoms for 12 years since I was 17 and a junior in high school. And tonight I have the host of the show that I normally co-host on Wednesdays, Showing Up Perspectives on Cancer, being my special co-host again. You might remember him from my first episode, my inaugural launch. He is my bestie. He is my bruh fam. He is my dude. He is the light in my world, and I don't know where I would be without him. So let me bring Tim onto the stage. Tim, I love you, and I just want to take this moment on Blue Couch Chat to say how appreciative I am of how special and loved you made me feel on my birthday on Wednesday. Um, I've it was different from any other birthday, and the fact that I woke up to Dunkin' Donuts at my door, a shirt that says I pooped today. I should have been wearing that tonight. I will wear it next week.
Right?
I totally missed that one. Um, and then the fact that you surprised me after our episode with a surprise birthday party, which I've always wanted and never got one. And you managed to give me a surprise party from all the way in Shahola, Pennsylvania.
Oh, chocolate. You have to do it with me. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Oh, chocolate.
I just appreciate your friendship, and I appreciate you getting me through the ups and downs of the past year. I appreciate you trusting me to be your co-host, because that takes a lot of trust, especially knowing that I can be like totally unfiltered sometimes and unpredictable.
Can we tell the story of how you became the co-host of Showing
Yes.
Up?
Yes.
So what happened was in the fall, we had the in-person Showing Up Perspectives on Cancer event. And Shannon and I had originally met at Podfest, and she had come to the in-person event, and James Kiesewetter was going to be our guest for the in-person show, which was also live streamed, of Showing Up Perspectives on Cancer for that episode. But James got sick, so he couldn't do it. So I needed somebody to be the guest on that show. So Shannon, thank you for saying yes as I hold my squeaky pickle, which I didn't even realize. And so Shannon came on the show, and she did such a great job. She got really vulnerable on that show. And then I ended up asking her to be co-host for this show. Erica did a really great job co-hosting before you. But I needed somebody who would, and it's really, like when you're looking for a co-host, like you really need somebody that's gonna balance you out, and you really bring a huge heart to the show. You bring emotion to the show. You're so supportive of everybody. So I'm so glad you're co-host, and you're welcome for celebrating you the other day. One of my favorite things to do is to celebrate people, especially on live streams. It's so fun. And so You're welcome. I had a lot of fun too.
Thank you. It was really special on Wednesday, and it's been a rough couple of weeks, rough couple months. Um,
Yeah.
we wouldn't be here together if it wasn't for Lee Silverstein. We honored him and celebrated him, for my first episode. Hey Ross! Sorry, totally random.
No, it's fine. Hey, Russ.
um Squirrel. Yeah, let me get back. So, we celebrated Lee as my inaugural launch because Lee was the reason why I am in this space. And Lee is the reason why I got to Podfest because he kept on insisting. And then eventually he gently strong armed me with a free ticket and was like, "You have no excuse this year." And that's when I met you. And we just
Yeah.
immediately clicked. Like, you're the yin to my yang. And although we're kind of opposite, we're so similar in so many weird ways that we just clicked. And I don't think a day has gone by that we haven't spoken or at least texted. And we've both gone through some rough patches together as friends, getting each other through it, not in our friendship, but you know
Right.
but we both
Yeah.
put each other through some rough things. And
Hmm.
I don't know where I would be without you. There were some really dark nights where I was scared for myself, and you got me through, as well as my friend Hassani. I got to give him a special shout out because he's my other bro fam. But the two of you, like, you mean the world to me. And Tim, I am honored to be your co-host, and I'm so honored that we get to be here tonight, talking about some really real shit, you know? Um the shitty side of survivorship. It's not all sunshine and rainbows, unfortunately. For those who aren't aware, who missed episode 2 or 3 or 4, I think I might have missed the graphic and not changed it to episode 5. Sorry, I was in a rush. But
Wait,
classic.
where can people find the previous episodes of your show?
So if you don't know, I'm on Blue Couch. Thank you, Tim. That's why you're a wonderful co-host. You see
Thank
that?
you.
I love you. So of course I'm Blue Couch Chat on all socials. Instagram, I'm still trying to figure out how to get that to be more seamless. It's hard to stream to Instagram, but YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter/X, all socials, I am Blue Couch Chat. I'm working on getting a TikTok, so bear with me. But yeah, so if you watch the previous episodes, you'll see that we sorry. Sorry, I have this cough from all my travels. Being live. Um so we honored Lee, and unfortunately after my first episode on February 9th, he passed away 5 days later on Valentine's Day, February 14th. And Tim, you and I managed to go to his memorial on Saturday.
You
Thank
need
you,
some water.
cuz, Whitney. I forgot my water outside. So I'm
You want to
sorry.
go get some?
I will, as soon as I bring us to where we are, and then you can kind of ad lib while I go run for my water.
No
Thank you,
problem.
Sydney. Thank you for looking out for me. Um, I just want to say, we went to Lee's memorial, and it was really emotional. And I'm really glad that I had you there, as well as Zach Attack and Chris and everyone else. And I don't know what's going on. But I just, it was difficult, and I've been scared of allowing myself to grieve my friend because I've known him. He was one of the first people I met in the colorectal cancer space. And he and I were diagnosed the same year. He was diagnosed in March. I was diagnosed in October. We were both stage 3 at the beginning. He had a recurrence after a year of being NED, and he battled for almost 12 years after that. And He was instrumental in my survivorship because from day one, he said, I have a story that needs to be told and a voice that needs to be heard. And I fought for a long time to have my voice heard and to have my story heard. And that's why I created this space so that everybody who wants to share their story or have their voice heard has a platform. I didn't create this for myself. I created this so everyone has a place to know that they're not alone. And everyone has a place to share their story because every story matters and every story can help at least one person. And unfortunately, a lot of the organizations don't have a platform where they can share everyone's story.
Yeah.
So I created one. And I'm hoping that the day will come where there won't be any more stories to share because colorectal cancer is a totally preventable cancer. And hopefully, there will be a day in my lifetime where there is no more colon cancer or colorectal cancer. And that's the real shit. And that's why I created this place, this space, Blue Couch Chat, to be the safe place to talk about our shit. Because as we both know, Tim, not everybody wants to hear our shit. They don't want to hear about our struggles. They don't want to hear about the real stuff that we deal with. And unfortunately, I've gotten that from my own family, but it's inspired me to really get this going. And Lee being on hospice was really that last push to say, I need to do this so he can see his legacy and what he pushed me to do, and that I really am doing it while I still had a chance. And I almost waited too late. So I want the message to be when you want to do something, no matter how scary it is, no matter how much it's out of your comfort zone, don't wait. Because don't wait to be mushy like me and tell your friends, like I tell Tim every day, how much I love him and appreciate him. Don't wait. I was mushy with my cousin Sydney today and I texted her and said how I feel. And she's like, where is this coming from? Don't wait. Life is short, it's fickle, it can be gone like that, and we don't know when. And so we need to express why and how much we love each other. And so that's the beginning of what we're going to talk about today is all of the emotions, the real shit, the
I've got
real.
the tissues. I've got the puffs.
I have mine too that I stole from Podfest. Don't
All
tell him.
right. Shout out to Podfest.
Actually, I was crying in the bathroom, and the lady was nice enough to give this to me. Thanks, Russ. Also, if you want to join us tonight, just hit us up in the comments, ask questions. If you want to come on live, you're welcome to come on live tonight. This is not a two-man show tonight. That's why I put Tim as co-host because I'm willing to have some impromptu guests. So, Russ, if you want to jump on and you're ready in your dress, even if you're not dressed, you're welcome. um, but you know, we think that cancer survivorship or is just a physical thing. Having cancer is so fucking mental. And then after cancer, it's so effing mental, even with the long term effects. And what they don't tell us about are the mental health aspects of one, being a patient, and two, being a survivor. And so, Tim, go ahead and share your story because I always say that your cancer is kind of a mind fuck. You can be brief because I do want to have you on, just you, just telling your story because you're instrumental to why I am here. So, yeah.
Sure. So 17, like 17 years and 3 months ago, I was diagnosed with chronic myeloid leukemia after I found some purple bruises on my legs, on one of my legs. And so after I discovered that, I went to my primary care physician and he took some blood work and he called me not that long after. I think maybe it was the next day. And he said, you need to go to the hospital immediately. So I went to the hospital, Westchester Medical Center in Valhalla, New York. Shout out to Westchester Medical Center. And I was there for 4 days, only 4 days. And in that time period, they diagnosed me with chronic myeloid leukemia, this really funny sounding word. The only thing I knew about leukemia at the time was that when I was in elementary school, I remembered a classmate had died of leukemia, but that's really all I knew about it. There have been many family members, extended family members, who have had cancer, who have passed of cancer, who currently have cancer, all the tenses. Um, but I never expected myself to get cancer. I never really thought about it until it showed up. Um, so I ended up taking a treatment called, it's an oral chemotherapy medication that I take daily. Originally, there was one I took called Gleevec, Gleevec, and now I take one called Sprycel, Sprycel. I tried one called Bosylif in between, and that just made me vomit all the time. So luckily, I think there are like at least 6 different options now for treatments for chronic myeloid leukemia, which is really great. I think when I was first diagnosed, there was there was the one that I took. I knew there was a clinical trial that was out. So maybe there was 1 or 2 when I was first diagnosed more than 17 years ago. Um, so that's just kind of my story in a nutshell. I've kind of been on a roller coaster of, I was in cancer land for 15, almost 15 years, out of cancer for like a year and a half, and then back in. Um, Something that's kind of unique to my journey is that I have not had physical effects from cancer or from side effects. So I've been very blessed in that way. But as Shannon was saying before, the mental and emotional effects of cancer are especially challenging, especially in my journey. But I believe in any cancer patient or survivor's story, the mental and emotional aspects are definitely there. So that's kind of a glimpse of my story. And if I don't know if Shannon wants to come back on the screen now. Hi.
Yes. How do I switch us?
You want me to do it?
Yes, please. I'm still learning this. This is why I'm saying I would not be where I am if it wasn't for Tim. Um, Tim, I always tell you, like, I feel like I'm lucky when I think about your journey because my cancer is, I mean, unless it's before it's really showing, it was visible, right? My
Right.
doctor, it wasn't visible on a scan, which is why I pushed for a colonoscopy, but it was visible to my surgeon and he could remove it. And if it goes somewhere, it would usually show up on a scan if it doesn't show in blood work. So
Yeah.
my cancer is a tumor. It's a solid tumor. But yours is in your blood and it's in your body and there isn't really a cure, it's really a long-term remission. Whereas I've been told I'm cured, I have a low chance of recurrence, but I have a high chance of a new primary. We haven't shared my story yet. Well, I'm giving you bits and pieces. We'll get to that when it's time, guys, to just be, I have a reason behind everything. But Tim, like, I don't know what it would be like for me if I had a cancer like yours, where I'm just looking at numbers and fighting numbers. Like, that would just be so weird to me. And then the fact that you don't have any physical effects to know if you're better or if you're not. And the fact that, you were actually, your doctor didn't even tell you that you had a recurrence. He missed it.
I don't know if he missed it. He didn't tell me that it had come back. It was in a
Which,
small amount. Um, Not that that particularly matters, but this was a while ago
right.
that I had found out that my cancer had come back, like less than a year ago, I think now.
And again, it's
And
just a numbers game for you, right?
what's up?
It's kind of just a numbers game for you, right? With your blood work.
Yeah, they do these tests every so often, like maybe every like half a year, maybe a little bit less, called a genetic study where they look at your numbers, your percentage of leukemia that's in your body.
Right.
Um, and so it is, I don't really like to call it a numbers game per se, because it's cancer, but my numbers have gone down, they have gone up. I've been lucky that they haven't gone up a lot any time really during my journey since early
Right.
on. But it is challenging. Hello, Don. Hello, Blue Couch family, Don says.
Hello,
Um,
Don. You beat me to it. See, that's why I have you.
oh, sorry. See, you have
No, you're
two
so good
hosts
at
here.
multitasking. No, you make it easier for me. It's fine. Mentally, I'm like all over the place still.
Okay.
It's
If
fine.
I do something and you're like,
No,
it's okay, just say it.
this is why I trust you because you're a pro at this and I love you. And
Thank you.
yeah, so like, so your numbers went up. So that's how you knew that your cancer was back, but there wasn't
Right.
any scan to be done because your tumor is not a solid tumor, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a scan in the sense of if I had a tumor, but they do this genetic study that looks at the percentage of leukemia in your body. So it's a little different, the test that they do,
Right.
but they can see, if you have more leukemia or less leukemia than last time that they did the test.
Right.
Um, and then, depending on that, if the numbers have gone up in a significant amount, then they would potentially look at changing which oral chemotherapy medication that I'm on. Um,
Right.
but yeah, but I, not that cancer is a competition. I know how you always say that you think my cancer is a mind bleep. Um,
You don't have to censor yourself here, but if you want to, that's
I
fine.
know, but I just can't say that on
I know
video.
you don't curse. Yeah, I know.
But like you and other people have had physical effects from cancer and have had maybe side effects from cancer or from um, chemo or whatever
Right.
the treatment is.
Right.
So like my perspective on what you've gone through is you and others have both the physical effects or had and you continue to have like complications, right?
Right.
So like you have that plus you have the mental and emotional effects. So
Right.
like, I haven't had the physical. So you have like additional stuff to deal with,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. But for me, even the physical aspect is still a mental thing. Like
Ooh.
gaining 70 pounds, gaining 60 pounds in 6 weeks while on chemo,
Mm,
being nauseous from chemo, having diarrhea, throwing up, all of it, getting through that, although it was physical effects, is still mentally you have to push through. So
mm.
it's a different mental battle, but it's still a mental thing,
Yeah, of
and even,
course.
like we were talking to, it was Kate, right, on Wednesday, and I was saying, you have to, no, it wasn't Kate. Who was it that came on? It was Michelle, who came on, and she has her neuropathy.
Yeah.
And I said, you know, the neuropathy hurts, but you're not doing any damage to your body. Your nerves are hurting. So mentally, you have to push through your feet hurting when you walk. So it's still a mental thing. A lot of this cancer stuff, I want to give a shout out to my cousin Sydney. She knows how much of a mental and emotional thing cancer is. My friend JJ, my friend Ben, my friend Tim, McDonald, because you're Tim. They know the mental and emotional effects that cancer takes. And so let's go, so it comes from the mental of having it and fighting it, but then there's also the mental after, in the PTSD and the depression and the anxiety and the survivor's guilt and the, like all of these emotions that come with the survivorship now, right? that they don't warn us about. But I think that these should be listed as freaking side effects of cancer because it takes an emotional freaking toll. Like, I don't think anybody even knows that as cancer survivors, we have an increased chance of suicide.
Mhm.
After fighting for our lives, a lot of us battle so much emotionally and mentally that we take the life that we fought for tooth and nail. So these things are real. And Tim, like, you and I were speaking, and the duality of this week and of, the past couple of weeks, even in January, here it is. I'm on my way to celebrate my aunt's birthday in New York in an Uber with my family. And I hear that Lee is on hospice. And so I'm here wanting to bawl my eyes out. But as my dad said, I had to suck it up, buttercup. It's part of life. And I have to celebrate my aunt's 80th birthday. And so it's that duality of life and death and survivorship and other people not surviving. And it's just this yin and yang. And how do you find the balance of that? So
Yeah.
I know I try to deal with my survivor's guilt now because I've lost so many friends over the years who were diagnosed after me. And I have so many pictures where I'm the last one standing in a group of us. And
Yeah.
it's how do you deal with the survivor's guilt? How do you push through it mentally? Um, I think I'm now starting to figure out how to deal with it because I knew that losing Lee, if I allowed myself to deal with the survivor's guilt and the grief the way I normally do, it would be way too devastating for me. And I had to find a new way to deal with it. So before I go into my new way of dealing with it, how do you deal with your survivor's guilt?
So so it's been kind of a journey for me. Since I didn't share my story until 2021, so it'll be 3 years in November. Um, like I never thought like who am I to show up and share my story? I haven't had any physical effects from cancer. And even mentally, I would say it hadn't been really that difficult for most of the 15 years for me. Just kind of like I lived life like I didn't have cancer, except I took a pill every day.
Right.
Um, so survivor's guilt during that time, and like I said before, a lot of people in my extended family have had cancer over the years. So survivor's guilt had, hit me over those years because I didn't suffer a lot physically. Not that cancer is a competition because it's not. Um, but then when my cancer came back in the last year, I was telling Shannon before that I just like I don't feel it as much. Like sure, like when Lee died, that really hit me
Yeah.
because I had met him. I had seen him 2 times at Podfest, and he was on the show, and he's a good friend of one of my other friends, and he was the first. Well, he's been the second guest on Showing Up Perspectives on Cancer who has passed, and it was the first event that I've gone to where a guest of the show, like it was an event that was related to that. So I'm glad we could go, Shannon.
Me too.
Um, so I think survivor's guilt is something that is unique to each person and even changes over time depending where we are in our journey. What do you think, Shannon?
So normally when I have a friend who passes, I go into this deep dark hole and I lay in my bed and I ball myself up with my two little dogs and I cry it out.
Hmm.
And sometimes it's days, weeks, maybe months before I'm able to resurface. This time I knew that I had to prepare myself. So thankfully, I had time to prepare myself with Lee. But I had to find a new way to channel my grief because I knew that if I dealt with it the way that I normally deal with it, I might not be able to resurface. Because the impact that he had on me, the fact that he's one of the first people that I met and one of the longest friendships I've had in this space, he literally was in the group of the first people that I met, in 2013 when I first realized that I wasn't alone in this. And he was my friend. He encouraged me to share my story, to make sure that my voice was heard. He had me on his show, which was an honor. First was the colon cancer podcast, then became the We Have Cancer podcast. And that friendship that we had, we might not have spoken all the time, but he was always on my mind and in my heart. And we would text back and forth and have random phone calls. But it was also the fact that when Lee went into hospice in January, I had lost my grandfather to pancreatic cancer in January. Just 3 months after I was diagnosed. He was diagnosed a month after me, and he was gone in 6 weeks. And my grandfather was my best friend. And so Lee going on to hospice, I hate Christmas, hate New Year's, hate January because of all of that. The triggers of being on treatment, doing surgeries during that time. So Lee going on to hospice was a real trigger for me because my grandfather passed on January 12th. And so it was just all of these things that I knew. It was so many triggers and so many layers that I had to process. And Lee reminded me of my grandfather so much in his life and even in how he handled hospice and facing his mortality, his personality and his tenacity and his quiet strength. My grandfather was like Lee, that calm river with that water churning underneath.
Yeah.
And the person that he was, where he had such a big giving heart and he just loved on people. That was my grandpa. And so it was just really hard because there's just so many triggers. And that's why when I saw him at Podfest and I knew his time was short, I said I need to do Blue Couch Chat. And I also wanted it to be a way for me to express what he was to me and the fact that I did this. This thing that he told me I should do and that he pushed me to do. I did this. And he was able to see it. And I was able to use it, not for me, but to celebrate him. And we, Tim, were able to show him how loved he was before he went.
Yeah.
It was right before. Like I said, it was almost too late. And so that's how I've been channeling my grief, is finding productive ways to pay Lee's legacy forward and to take my grief and turn it into a positive and make it that fire of my advocacy and make my voice louder and make his story a part of my story and share his story too. Because if I didn't find this platform to do this, I don't think I'd be handling it as well as I have been. And I want to give a special shout out to Zach and to Chris and to Andrew from Podfest. I don't know if I've said this publicly, but they allowed me to create a scholarship through Blue Couch Chat where I will provide a ticket to Podfest to another cancer survivor who wants to use this platform, whether it's a podcast or a live stream, to spread awareness and to give support and education and resources. And that will be the Lee Silverstein Scholarship for Podfest. So if you want to apply, please reach out to me. Um, that is something that I've also done in Lee's honor because that's what he did for me. And now I want to pay it forward in his name and as part of his legacy. Um, and I'm just glad that I was able to find this way to process this because if I didn't find a way to honor Lee and then, being able to be around his family and his family telling me how much, Margie, I love you. Margie's his youngest sister. And we bonded at Podfest. And I knew how much Lee meant to me, but Margie let me know how much I meant to him, which I didn't know. I always thought I was a crappy friend to him and I could have done more. Um, but, you know, being at his service and going up to Linda to give her my love and my condolences and my sentiments, and for her to encourage me to speak, and for me to, and I don't even know how fast I typed that away on my phone, type some notes up of who Lee was to me and about our friendship, which I might share as the outro of the show tonight. Um, that also allowed me to process and to express how much he meant to me. And so I'm grateful to his family for allowing me to do that. It truly helped me as much as I hope it helped you to know how loved and how special he was, not just to me, but so many people in our space. So, Tim, I guess what else? I mean, grief and survivor's guilt. I guess they go kind of hand in hand, right?
I really admire you for finding ways, like positive ways to celebrate Lee. For me, the week leading up to the celebration of life, I mean, I get bad migraines already, but they were even worse. My knot was in a stomach. My stomach was in a knot for like a week, and like I didn't know what to do with my grief. It was just a hard week for me. But then when we showed up to the celebration of life, and there were so many people there to support Linda and her family and to celebrate Lee's amazing life, that helped bring some closure for me. Of course, I'm still sad that, Lee has passed, but so many people showed up and shared memories of Lee, stories. So that was really beautiful. And I think that helped me in a way to deal with my grief because I did not know what to do with it at all.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. But in your grief, you managed to be here for me and mine. And I'm really appreciative. I mean, you've been so supportive of me through this entire journey from Lee going on to hospice to him passing and the whole Blue Couch chat journey, which was a whirlwind. You made this possible, and I'm just grateful for your friendship and how much support and encouragement and love you've given me, Tim. This is the first time that I've really dealt with losing a friend and not dealt with it alone. And it's really helped. You've really, really helped. I don't think you know how much.
I'm glad. And I know it's not easy to go through these things alone, and having support from other people helps. So I'm glad I could be there for you, for sure.
Yeah, it's so funny. I remember, I think it was my 35th birthday. I was technically engaged at the time. That didn't work out, but thank God everybody can say woohoo to that. Let's celebrate that right now. But
Should we celebrate with a rubber chicken?
Yeah, and confetti and all of it. Um, I remember that it was my birthday and we went out to dinner. And I was sitting at the table and I just started bawling. And I didn't even know why at the moment. I just started crying. And he got mad because I was crying and we're at dinner and he's embarrassed because he thinks people are going to think that he's the one who made me cry. Although he made me cry lots of times. But it was because I was celebrating my birthday and I have so many friends who don't have any more birthdays to celebrate. And I have so many friends who died from colon cancer before they reached 35, or now I'm 42. You know, it's that duality, it's that survivor's guilt of having a birthday, but also realizing that there's so many people who I loved who aren't here to celebrate their birthdays or to celebrate their kids' birthdays with them, their little kids. And so that's hard, right? Like, it's hard.
Yeah.
And so it's taken me 10 years to deal with the survivor's guilt, or 12 years really, because I had to deal with it with my grandfather too. But it's just, we have to take the people that we've lost and we have to continue advocating against cancer in their memory and in their honor. And that's what I did all March. My advocacy hasn't been about me. My advocacy has been because I had a freaking preventable disease and too many people are dying from it. Too many people that I know, too many people that I love, too many people who have young kids, too many people who are way too young, too many people who have fought so hard to live. And so I fight and I use their memory as my fire. And the energy that I managed to find to go from Miami to Tucson, and then from Tucson overnight with a 3-stop flight to DC, straight to call on Congress to march the halls of Congress and the Senate to push for funding for prevention and research. I use their stories, I use their passing, I use my own as a reason to fight. And it's taken me a while to realize that that's what I need to do. So, I want to go into some of the other mental health things that we deal with. Like, I have a lot of anxiety. You've seen me battle depression, Tim.
Mm-hmm.
You've talked me off of the cliff. I've had suicidal ideation in the past couple of months, which there was especially one scary night, and I don't know what I texted you, but you caught on to it and you were there. I have attempted since fighting for my life, which is something that I haven't really publicly shared until now. But yeah, now the cat's out of the bag. Um, but the depression, the anxiety, PTSD, you know, these are things that we deal with after our cancer survivorship, or even while we're going through it. And while I was going through it, I had Lee's voice. I had his podcast to help me through, which it did. But how do you deal with those emotions and those mental health issues? Because that's another battle we deal with.
I like walking in nature. That gives me time to reflect or deflect, depending on the day. I see a therapist, which I started seeing in the last year, and that's been really helpful in terms of communication with people that sometimes, we have our perspectives as cancer patients or survivors, and then people who are family or friends or, like they have a different perspective. And so trying to figure out how to communicate with people to hopefully get to a point where we can understand each other enough to just to communicate and have a relationship, you know. Um, Another outlet for me is playing the piano. I love to play the piano, and while I just love it for the sake of doing it, and I play at my church, it also is just kind of like an emotional release when I play. You know, it feels good. Um, I love doing it. It makes me happy. Um, and it can just kind of like get me out of a funk, you know?
Yeah,
So I would say those are a few things: piano, nature, therapist, professional help definitely helps, you know, at certain points in your journey when you need it.
for
So,
sure. I
well,
mean,
also squeaky pickles and rubber chickens. Oh, and Gary the goat, which is upstairs. So sorry, Gary, and sorry, y'all. Yeah.
I have my Remy and Rezzy, which are in their room right now because I don't want them making too much noise while I'm online. But I also have you, my friend, and other friends who I know I can reach out to. Um I paddleboard when I can, which I have not done in a while. Um my dad has been encouraging me to write a journal and write a book, which
Mm,
I really need to do.
yes, you
Um,
do.
this show and co-hosting your show has helped me immensely because I feel like it's made me take my pain and make it my purpose and to try to help others and encourage them through. Um, and I think the other thing that definitely helps, just like you, is seeing a psychiatrist and a psychologist.
Hmm.
Um, and my psychologist actually wants me to do some intense therapy for a lot of past traumas that I have. Which I've just been waiting until the end of March for things to kind of settle down with. But it's really important. And I want to stress it's important that we get our colonoscopies. It's important that we get our screenings. It's important that we go to the doctors when we don't feel well or that we do our annual physicals or checkups. But what is even more important is that we take care of our mind, our heart, our emotions, and our spirit. Because when those things get sick, it is just as deadly as a physical illness. And Tim,
Yeah.
I admire you so much for being so open about going to a therapist because we know why Trevor created Man Up to Cancer. Shout out to Trevor and Joe. Of course, I always give them shout outs. But we know that men are told to man up, and men aren't really encouraged to be open about their mental health or seeking help. And so I've always admired you for being so open about that part. And I'm hoping that there are men watching tonight who know that it is okay and it is needed for you to take care of your mind and your heart and your soul and your spirit.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not really sure how to respond. It's like I'm not your stereotypical manly man or whatever, you know, and being vulnerable is something that I was not until I shared my cancer story. But the really awesome thing about sharing your cancer story as a man or a woman is that you get to receive love and acceptance from other people. Now, you may get other emotions as well from some people, but for the most part, you are probably going to receive love and acceptance, especially if you show up here at Blue Couch Chat or if you show up at Showing Up
Oh, yeah.
Perspectives on Cancer.
Mhm.
And you were saying before, Shannon, how how this show has helped you, in terms of like receiving support, like with your mental health. And it's the same for me at showing up perspectives on cancer. And for the reason that oftentimes I feel like I'm not understood. And so to have a community, to be able to have conversations with people that each of our stories are different, right? But there are pieces of our stories that we'll be able to relate to. Like all of us who have been diagnosed with cancer heard you have cancer or you have leukemia or you have whatever, right? And then like your reaction to that or whatever that conversation looks like. But to be able to have a family of people that understand you to an extent is just I can't even put into words how impactful that has been for me.
I agree. I agree. It's, you know, I know you don't like it, but I always say the showing up family, and now I have my blue
No, I
cat.
do like it. I know I always
Okay.
say community and you say family,
It's
but family is
really
more
a
personal.
family. It really is a family. I mean, the love that everyone has shown me from the in-person event, just meeting me, and I was like a stranger coming in. You're the only one who knew me.
Yeah.
Um, to now being your co-host and the love and support that everyone shows me. And, I want to give a shout out to Russ again because he sends me these daily texts
Yeah.
and they really brighten my day, and especially on the rough days, just that text to know, hey, there's this person thinking about you. There's this person who cares about you. Tim, you and I, we talk every day, and just knowing that I have a friend that I can confide in and who gets it and that I can be me with. Like, you're like the first friend that I've really had that I can really, really be me. Be quirky, be weird, be silly, be crazy, pee myself, literally, and not be embarrassed. Like, I had to put that in there. Um, you've really been instrumental to how far I have come and what I've gotten through in the past year. Um, you know, I I do want to say, hey Dr. New, I love you. Thanks for tuning in. Hey Renee, thanks for listening. Um, so Don Raja is saying that he never tried talking about it and he tried and quit with therapy. And he's asking us, what made you stay committed to follow through with therapy? Um, Tim, you want to go first?
Sure. I think for me, it's seeing results from the therapy. Like for me, it's um, getting help with having conversations. It's more than that, but the biggest thing that I wanted to do in therapy was I needed somebody to encourage me to have hard conversations. And I feel like over time, it's still not easy, a lot of the conversations,
Mhm.
but I stick with it because I think it's important to have somebody that holds you accountable to keep having conversations, if
Mhm.
they're necessary. And conversations are necessary on an ongoing basis when you're in a cancer journey, I think. What
I
say
agree.
you?
Um, I have gone through therapy. The first time that I actually went through therapy was when I moved to Jamaica in like 2005, 2006. I opened up to my dad in a letter. And, my dad just was frustrated with me and couldn't understand why I was doing some stupid things that I shouldn't have been doing. And I wrote him a letter and I opened up to him about the fact that I was sexually assaulted. He knew about one instance, but he didn't know about the time in high school. I hadn't told anybody, which, Tim, I opened up about for the first time publicly at showing up.
Yeah.
And that's because you gave me a safe place. And that's why I know how important it is to have a safe place like your show and this show.
Yeah.
Um, it's funny how something so public can also be so safe. Um, so I wrote him that letter, and he immediately got me into therapy in Jamaica. So that was the first time. Well, it was the second time that I'd gotten therapy. I also got therapy because when I started college, a family friend tried to assault me. And my family didn't really understand how traumatic it really was because it had triggered what I had already not dealt with as being a rape survivor. And I'm not going to say a victim
Mhm.
because we're not victims of circumstances that happen to us. And I'm not going to ever look at myself as a victim. I am always a survivor and an overcomer and a thriver and a fighter. And that took me a while to realize that I was not a victim and that I had nothing to be ashamed of. And it took me until your show to realize that I had nothing to be ashamed of and I should share my story because it might help others. So,
Yeah. Even, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but Don said, I have Crohn's disease and your stories are relatable. And that's not even cancer. And our stories are relatable to him.
well,
So thanks for sharing.
Crohn's increases your risk of having colon cancer, colorectal cancer.
Hmm.
Crohn's is debilitating. A lot of the symptoms that I experienced would be just like Crohn's. Also, having gastroparesis is very similar to having Crohn's. Now, having a shortened bowel is very much similar to Crohn's. I have known him since I was 17, and he knows a lot of the things that I've dealt with even before I was diagnosed. Um, but it comes to a point where you have to know that you can't heal if you only go halfway with therapy. It's like putting a band aid on the wound and then taking the band aid off before the wound heals and then picking at it and expecting the wound to go away. Even if the wound heals, there's always going to be that scar, and that scar can open up at any moment with any little trigger. And so it took me a while to realize that it was okay for me to admit that I needed help and to admit that I needed
Hmm.
professional help. And just like I've learned that you can fire doctors,
Hmm.
you can fire a therapist. If
Hmm.
the therapist isn't the right fit for you, like a shoe,
Yeah.
you don't want a therapist that is too tight or too loose because eventually your feet are going to hurt and you're not going to be healing. So
Sure.
it's important that you find the therapist that is the right fit for you. And lately I found like I finally found the right people to help me. My psychiatrist is also a cancer survivor. So he gets me on the level that I need someone to get me. And I've only been seeing him for less than a year now.
Hmm.
My new psychologist, she's young and she gets the things that I've dealt with work issues and otherwise. And so it's really important that you know that there's nothing wrong with you if you and your therapist aren't a good fit. It's like a relationship, it's like a shoe. You have to have the right fit. The wrong therapist might do more harm than good, or you might quit because
Right.
you just feel like they don't get it. So it's really important that you understand that it's okay to go through 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 therapists before you find the right one. I also want to say that there's nothing wrong with having to be on medication as an antidepressant or an anti anxiety medication. I have a hard time falling asleep. I've suffered with insomnia for a large part of my 42-year-old life. Now I'm 42. Oh my God, I feel so weird saying that. Um, but it's okay if the medications help you, then take them and don't come off of them just because you feel better. Because, and also know that yes, you're taking a pill, but it's not a magic pill that's going to make your problems go away and your depression or anxiety go away. You need the therapy with it. You need the psychiatrist guiding you. And you also have to put in your own work mentally. The pill is just a helper, it's not a fix at all. So when you take those antidepressants, first of all, it takes a while to kick in. Second, don't ever go off of them without consulting your doctor first. Don't go cold turkey. And know that sometimes antidepressants can cause you to have suicidal ideation. I lost a cousin to suicide while she was on antidepressants. This is a real issue for me. And it's something that has been scary for me when I first went on antidepressants. So just know that they might need to adjust your dosage. You might need to take it at a certain time of day or night, or with food or without food. There are different things that affect how an antidepressant works, but you have to understand that just because you pop a pill doesn't mean that you don't have to do the mental work to help yourself and to still do therapy with it. So that's just my little
Yeah.
spiel. I'm really glad we're having this conversation tonight because I really think that I've been struggling more than I realized because I've just been trying to be in push through push through it mode. And
Yeah.
I think a lot of us have been struggling, especially with COVID too. I think mental health is relatable even if you don't have cancer.
Yeah. And I think too about therapy, I think it's important that you like you know what your goal is when you go in to see a therapist, right? Like cuz it's easy to go in and talk about whatever fills up the 45 minutes or an hour or whatever it is, right?
Right.
But like what are the conversations that you want to have that will get you to your goal of going to therapy, whatever it is, you know?
Right. Right. So my friend here says, help me to choose the right therapist. I can only help you by telling you that it's kind of like when you fall in love, you just know. It's when you feel safe, it's when you feel heard, it's when you feel understood. Tim, you want to give your side of it?
I I really like my therapist. She really understands me. She is not actually she has had a cancer. Um but she understands my perspectives, but she also gives like if she has another perspective to share also, she'll share that, which
Mhm.
has been really helpful because we're close to ourselves, obviously. We are ourselves.
Right.
So to have a person who's objective, um, and I just got lucky. I think that the first person that I reached out to, it's worked out really well. She's been really helpful.
Right.
Um, but like you were saying, like it's kind of like getting a second opinion or a third opinion or a fourth opinion or a fifth opinion as a cancer patient, like for an oncologist or another medical professional.
Right. Right.
You need to find the person that's going to work for you. And so maybe make a list like what is it that you're looking for in a therapist? Like Don, do you know what you're looking for in a therapist? You don't have to share it publicly here, but it's just something to think about.
Um, I can share one therapist that I technically fired and another therapist that I fell in love with and why. Um, when so he says, when I speak from my heart, she doesn't understand. I can understand that. So just like, I was misdiagnosed by doctors because they didn't listen to me. You can have a therapist that doesn't listen to you just because that's what they're supposed to do doesn't mean that that's what they're able to do all the time. Nobody's perfect. One therapist might be great for one person, but they might not be the right fit for another. All of us deal with things differently. All of us express ourselves differently. All of us go through different things. And I had a therapist that I liked for a really long time. She got me through some job issues about 5 years back. Um, but then when I called her a year ago, and I was on vacation and I'm supposed to be enjoying myself, and I'm crying because I have to go back to work at my new department. She said, "I'm not giving you another leave of absence. You're going to have to deal with it. You have the tools to deal with it this time." I ended up losing my job 2 months later. I was in the hospital a month after I spoke to her, not even a month after, because my stress and my emotional issues tend to come up physically for me because I've always carried my emotions in my abdomen. And after having colon cancer, now having endometriosis, and now having gastroparesis from the chemo, that is not helpful. So the minute that I have any kind of stress, I usually end up in the hospital. Um, so I decided that I wasn't going to go back to her, and I found a new psychologist who I really like because she's like, "Look, you have a lot of layers of PTSD, girl. You have a lot of trauma, and you're going to need to go to someone who can give you intense therapy." So she wants me to do 6 to 8 weeks of daily therapy for at least 4 hours a day, because seeing her once a week or once every 2 weeks is not enough. So she wants me to kickstart that healing of the trauma and deal with it so then she can do the maintenance plan, right? So it's kind of like when
Right.
your engine goes bad, she wants somebody to put in that new engine, do the overhaul on it, and then she can then do the oil changes from that point forward when the engine is working again. My psychiatrist, the reason why that moment when I realized that we clicked was when, one, therapists and psychiatrists usually don't share about their personal lives. But he shared with me that he had just been diagnosed with cancer, which made me feel like, okay, he gets it, right? He gets it. But then it was also when I explained some issues I was having at work. And his response was, "Girl, you fought for your fucking life. Fuck the job." And that's when I was like, he literally said that, cursing included. And that's when I was like, this dude gets it. He gets what's important. When I said, "I'm working all the time, I'm stressed out from work, I'm depressed because of work, I'm having anxiety because of work, you have to medicate me because of work." And then I said, "I'm so tired when I get home from work and I'm so emotionally and mentally and physically drained that I'm not able to enjoy my life." He got it. And that's what I mean when it seems right, it feels right, it feels right. You just know. You agree, right, Tim? Like that's usually how it is.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. You just have a feeling, or maybe they can relate to you in some way, um, or they just get you over time, you know.
Mhm.
But it's usually like a feeling, like a vibe, you know.
Right. And you
Uh,
also don't want a therapist that agrees with you all the time. Sometimes you want a
No,
therapist who can say, "No, you're not thinking right. You need to change the way you need to change your inner voice."
I mean, maybe you do want them to agree with you all the time. I know I think that way sometimes, but then I'm like, no, it's not really for best, uh, my best, whatever, fill in the blank. Uh,
Right.
there's been a few conversations I've had with my therapist lately, and she said something that just seemed kind of like harsh, or, it was like the opposite perspective of mine, but it just kind of hit. We were talking about this recently, and it's all good. It's just like sometimes you don't expect a perspective from your therapist, but you
Right.
need to hear it.
Right.
And yeah, so
Yeah, like I mean, it felt good to hear my therapist in my first session, my psychologist tell me, "Girl, you have a lot of layers of PTSD that and there are probably more that I'm not even hearing yet."
mhm,
The fact that she could see that and say that, it was hard to hear, but it was good to hear.
right.
It was it was good to hear that somebody gets it without me saying everything. and that she was willing to help me through it. Um, so yes, we both understand why you quit. We both have done that. Um, but in terms of your therapist being a part of E&J, that is not healthy, especially because you have Crohn's, and I always nag you about that. Um, the other thing is that this brings us to another topic, Tim. I know we're gonna wrap up soon, but I do want to say that what we don't understand is that substance abuse, alcoholism, sex addiction, any kind of abuse or addiction of a substance or some other thing is usually tied to an emotional mental health issue. And so you saying that your therapist is a pint of E&J, which is alcohol. I don't know if you know what that is, Tim. We call it,
I don't know.
but it's a type of alcohol. And so if you're using alcohol or another substance to help you deal with your mental health issues, that is not healthy physically or mentally, because all you're doing is putting a band-aid on a wound and you're not helping it heal. And if you cover a wound too long, eventually becomes infected. So putting that band-aid on, whether it's weed, whether it's pills, whether it's E&J or rum or whatever, that's not healthy. That is not a healthy way of dealing with it, because you're not dealing with it, you're running from it. Running from your emotions. You can't outrun your emotions. They will always catch up to you because they're always faster than you are. And they will come back at your weakest, most vulnerable point, and they will kick you while you're already down from something else. And I'm telling you that from experience. So I ran and I stayed in denial about being raped for decades, for over a decade. And it ruled every stupid, dumb decision that I made. And it made me a person that I'm not. And so I want to be open about that, because I want you to know that I understand and I'm sharing my real shit. But for a long time, I was not the person that I was before, and I was not the person that I am now. And Tim, I don't know if I told you, but cancer saved my life. After I was raped, I had no self esteem. I lost my virginity that way. It was somebody that I knew while I had a boyfriend who I loved, who wanted to marry me, and we were saving ourselves. Danny James, if you're listening, I'm talking about you. Um, and I became this person that I wasn't because I was in denial. And cancer came along. And when I decided in a split second that I was going to fight for my life, that's when I realized that I do love myself and I am worthy of fighting for, and I am worthy of loving from me. And that's one of the many reasons why I'm actually grateful for cancer in a weird way.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. So, I just want to say that we really need to focus on mental health. And that's one of the topics that I do want to bring up regularly on Blue Couch Chat. And I want people to know that they can reach out to me. And maybe eventually this will be a Facebook community where we can have a private, safe place to share our journeys. But, it's really important that you find support. And if it's not a therapist, then there are support groups out there, right, Tim? There's Man Up to Cancer for men who have cancer. There's Colon Town, which they've created a group called the Safe Place, on the Safe Haven, and that's for mental health issues along with a cancer diagnosis. And it's a safe place for us to share our diagnoses or our struggles. And I've seen people reach out for help there. Um, there's You can reach out to me You can reach out to Tim. Like, we are here to give you support and be your friend and walk hand in hand with you. Tim has been more than my therapist for the past year. And I haven't paid him. I owe him so much money right now.
I'm
If it
still
was,
waiting for my check in the mail
do you take
or Apple
insurance?
Pay or I don't know. I'm just
Do you
kidding.
take insurance?
Insurance. No, sorry, no insurance. But I would accept more animals.
Oh, I can do
Always trying
that.
to grow this own farm.
I can give you a real goat. I can get a real goat for you.
How about a mini goat?
I can get you a baby goat.
Oh my gosh. And
Oh,
also on Showing Up Perspectives on Cancer, come over there. We also have a Facebook group. I haven't really kept it active yet, but feel free. Just search for Showing Up Perspectives on Cancer under Facebook groups. And in the next few months, I definitely want to get that going. And also, I know if you're a blood cancer patient or survivor, the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society has an online community that's a safe space also.
right,
Um, yeah,
right.
so
There's a lot of places for support if you're not a cancer survivor. Whatever it is you're dealing with, even if there's Crohn's, there are resources for people with Crohn's and colitis. I know people with Crohn's and colitis, they sometimes have ostomies. They have a lot of the same issues that cancer survivors have too. So some of the resources kind of overlap, and I can link you with that if you want to message me or call me or text me or whatever. I can hook you up with some resources or some people who also have Crohn's who can probably help you. Um, I just want to say that these Tim and I have created these safe places, showing up perspectives on cancer, Blue Couch Chat, the safe place to talk about your shit. And when I say shit, I don't just mean what we put in the toilet. I mean all of the shit that comes with shitty ass cancer. So, I just want you to know that if you want help, there are places. Um, do remember that there is a very thin line between suicidal ideation and suicide. And when you're coming close to that line, don't wait until you go over it and you're attempting or holding whatever, the pills or whatever it is to attempt. Make sure you seek help from when you know you're going downwards. You know, ask for help when you're walking to the cliff, not when you're about to jump. And that's something that I've learned. And also, like Tim, he was very sensitive to the moment when I was at that point. And I don't even think I was really obvious about it, but he just knew. And he took it serious.
mhm.
And Tim, I'm grateful for that because I know a lot of times people think that we're just seeking attention. That's not really the case. It
Yeah,
takes a really sick person to joke about suicide or to use it as a chip or a game. Um, but even if you think somebody might be joking about it or just trying to get your attention, still try to find them help. Um,
yeah,
that's that I want to say. And sometimes people they have the warning signs, but you have to be aware of them. Sometimes it's somebody giving away their stuff. Something as simple as that. Something as simple as your friend gives you their sweater that they've always loved and cherished. It can be something as simple as that they start giving away their things. It can be something as simple as not answering their phone or responding to texts. It can be as simple as a text that says, I love you and I'll see you later out of nowhere. Um, so just be aware that sometimes those those signals for help aren't flares that light up the sky. Sometimes they're not even smoke signals. They're just little glimmers of something that's just not right. And if your gut as a friend says something's not right, you're probably correct about it. And so I also want you to know, like Tim, sometimes it just takes a friend or a family member reminding you that they love you and that they care about you, and you realizing that you don't want to put them through what they would go through in losing you, that makes you hold on. Sometimes it's just knowing that you have a friend who has their hand out when you need it, that you can grab onto, like Tim has been for me, you know. So Tim, I want you to give your input on that, and then we can start wrapping up, I guess. But I know I've been really mushy, but this is a real conversation that I think we need to have, and I didn't want to wait to have it. I didn't expect to go this deep tonight and air all my dirty laundry and all my shit, but I guess I did. Um,
That's all
but
good. That's all
I
good.
guess I can't expect people to know that this is a safe place to talk about your shit if it's not a safe place for me to talk about mine.
That's true. That is very true. I would say that support is so important. And also I would say that cancer or not, like everybody's going through something at some point. And so, send a text message to somebody, call somebody, send an email. And thank you, Zan, for popping your collar to me. That's very generous of
I,
you.
I popped my collar to you too.
um, yeah, and you never know. And for me, I have an invisible cancer. So you would never know I had cancer when I'm just walking around or whatever, right now, except we're talking all about cancer, but um I think it's important to support others, and I think it's important to be able to receive support also when you need it, you know. There might be points in your journey where you don't want support. You don't want to talk to anyone. You just want to go hide in a black hole somewhere. And that's fine if you need to do that for a little while.
Right.
But when you do need help, and I know different people have different perspectives on receiving help, but if you need it, like when people offer their help, whatever it is, like people wouldn't offer unless they really wanted to help you, and if they're offering, that most likely means they love and care about you. So try to accept that support when somebody sends it your way,
I
Shannon.
I do want to give a special shout out to my cousin Carrie. I don't think he's watching tonight. I don't even think he knows I have a live stream yet. We haven't spoken in a while, but we usually talk. He lost his sister Stacy, my cousin, to suicide. Um, I think about 20 years ago, and I know she died March 8th. She was buried March 19th. My birthday was the 20th. Her birthday is the 25th. Um, it was really rough, and it was still is the hardest loss I've ever lost in my life. And it's affected him. And on those days when I want to give up, I think about him. And I think about the fact that I wouldn't want to put him through that pain again because I felt that pain too. And she wasn't my sister. So I want to give a shout out to Carrie as well. Hassani, Sydney, you, Tim, um, for being my life rafts, you know, for being the hands that I know I can reach out for when I really need them, and that you'll be there. It means a lot, more than you know, to have people in your life that you can reach out to at your most vulnerable, darkest moments. The other thing that I want to say is one thing that cancer taught me is when I go through something hard, I measure it and I say, okay, I'm going to give this 2 hours. and I'll lay in my bed and I'll cry for 2 hours. I'll set a timer on my phone. I'll put my phone on do not disturb and I will cry it out, kick, scream, whatever for 2 hours if that's what I think the time of whatever it is I'm dealing with deserves. And when those 2 hours are up, I brush myself off and I move on. And that helps me from going too deep in that whirlpool of depression. When I'm not able to kick myself out of it, that's when I seek help or I speak to my therapist and I make an appointment. Um, I'm going to be honest, I'm currently on an antidepressant, a very low dose every day. I have been for a couple of years. I've started and stopped, but I've made the commitment to stay on it. One, it helps my moods. Two, it really helps me sleep because I really have insomnia, which Tim, you know, because I send you random 4 o'clock in the morning text when I know you're sleeping. Um, and it also helps with my gastroparesis and my neuropathy. So that little pill has a lot of benefits for me. And I'm hoping that in my being vulnerable with you tonight and in Tim being vulnerable tonight, that we're able to help people to know that it is okay to talk about these things. In fact, it is a necessity to talk about these things and to seek help.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you can decide who you want to talk to. It doesn't have to be publicly on a live stream. You could come and watch the show and not comment a word
Right.
if you want to learn things, if you want to connect with people afterwards, things like that. You don't have to share publicly in order to receive support. You could share with a friend or colleague or whoever, whatever you're comfortable with.
And there are a lot of people that I either see them struggling on their Facebook and I comment and I give them little, pep talks and I say that I'm their cheerleader. There are people that I message when I see them post certain things and I message them and I let them know I'm here for them. I love them. I understand their struggle. They're total strangers that I haven't even met in person who I support because people have done that for me over the years. Even on Facebook,
Same. Yeah.
there are people who I haven't met in person and they have been huge supporters of me. So, I want to say that. And I also, want to say that like you said, Tim, I want to emphasize that it doesn't have to be public. This is a very sensitive, vulnerable topic and you do need to feel safe. So whatever safe way you feel to seek help is the way you should do it. But the most important thing that you do is that you seek help if you need it. And
Exactly.
there's a very thin line between finding out that your friend is on hospice and drinking 4 glasses of rum to numb yourself in one night to drinking rum every night to run away from your problems. It's
Right.
a very thin line. And so I want people to understand that. Um, Tim, if you don't mind, I just want to wrap up with what I said about Lee, if I can find it. Um, I just want to, I just want to, I just want to honor him again. Um, I don't know. I forgot what I was gonna say. Oh my god, total brain fart, chemo brain moment. That's another side effect is the chemo brain and forgetting your thoughts as they come up. But I did dedicate the song My Way to Lee because he did things his way up until the very end. And cancer never wins. We always beat cancer, even when we pass away. And I want people to know that. I hate when people say, oh, so and so lost their battle to cancer. We win From the day we hear those words and we decide to fight or we decide to face our mortality, we win. Cancer will never win over anyone. And I want everyone to understand that, especially those who've lost family members. They didn't lose. And when you share their story or you share their legacy or you talk about them, the way that Blue Couch Chat is in honor of Lee, we keep our loved ones winning. We keep that fight for them. We keep beating cancer for them. When we become advocates or allies, we beat cancer and we fight that shit for other people and we keep them winning, even when they're gone. And so I want you to understand that. And I don't want anyone here, if I ever pass from cancer, to say I lost my battle. Because I will never stop fighting this shit. And even if it takes me, it didn't win. And so I want you to know that. So I wanna start off by saying that in 2011, I was diagnosed with stage 3C colon cancer at the age of 29. As I said earlier, Lee was also diagnosed. Sorry, Tim, did you have anything else you want to say before I do this? Okay.
No, keep going.
Lee was diagnosed in 2011 just as I was, stage 3, and then a year later he had a recurrence. I've known Lee for a little over 10 years because it took me 2 years after my diagnosis before I found my Blue family and the CRC colorectal cancer community. 10 years. That's almost a quarter of my life and 10 out of my 12 years as a survivor. We met in Miami at the Colorectal Cancer Alliance. Back then it was the Colon Cancer Alliance annual conference, which happened to be in Miami in 2013. And it turns out it was both of our first conference, but he welcomed me like he had been a pro at this and it was his place. But that was just Lee, it turns out. We became friends, and he was one of the first people I met and the first friends I made as fellow survivors. It was 2 years after my diagnosis, but I was still scared and I had felt alone until I met him and made a few other friends during the conference. He encouraged me as a friend and through his colon cancer podcast, which became the We Have Cancer podcast. Lee and I didn't talk every day, but we texted back and forth. We had phone calls, and I listened to his podcast on good days, but especially on the most difficult days and nights. Lee and his voice have been a lighthouse, a beacon of light, giving me inspiration, encouragement, motivation, and most of all, hope. He encouraged me to start my own podcast sharing my story. We then decided it should be a live stream so people could see me and know they're not alone, and also know what I look like because representation and diversity are especially important, especially in the space of colorectal cancer, because Black and Brown people have a 20+% higher chance of having colorectal cancer and a 40% plus higher chance of dying from it. And we're usually diagnosed at later stages. And that's why I felt it was really important for people to see me. It was also important for me to have a live stream on platforms that people could see around the world because colorectal cancer, in my 12 years of being diagnosed and surviving, went from the number 3 cancer in the world to the number 2 cancer killer in the world, not just this country. If things continue, it will be the number 1 cancer killer in the world by 2030. On top of that, people around the world are dying. People in this country are dying from this, especially the under 50 population. So that's why I created this space to bring awareness, support, and also resources. I spent 8 years planning. The only thing I knew for sure was that Lee would be my first guest if and when it would happen, and Lee agreed. All this time, for 8 to 10 years, Lee urged me to go to Podfest. In 2023, sorry, he messaged me and said I have a free ticket and I live 3 hours away in Miami because Podfest is in Orlando every year, just so everyone knows. And that I no longer had an excuse to not be there. I'm not the type that likes public speaking, much less being in front of a camera. This is not my normal safe place. Those who know me know that this is not me. I like taking pictures, not being in pictures. Much less doing a live stream where you can't be a perfectionist when it's live. You heard me coughing earlier and all of this stuff. Tim's laughing. I am a total perfectionist. Um, I have no idea what Lee saw in me because I was this scared young lady when I met him. But he felt I had a story that needed to be shared and a voice that needed to be heard. In his own words, as he said in episode 1. Not only was Lee a part of my colorectal cancer family, but he led me to the Podfest family. And because of him, I realized how amazing the Podfest family is. And I met my bestie and bro fam, Tim, as well as Zach, and so many other people in this wonderful space. Being at Podfest last year, I realized that I needed to implement my live stream. I reserved my YouTube channel. Didn't reserve all my other socials. I don't know what I was thinking. And I started planning. I'm an architect by trade, so I'm meticulous, and planning is important to do before implementation. Everything has to be perfect. When I saw Lee at Podfest in January of this year, I knew I had to do it, and I had to do it right then. I committed myself publicly to being ready in 1 week. Thought I was crazy. In 1 week, I designed my logo, which you see in the top left of the screen. I found my guest for my first episode, and I got my graphics and my theme song ready. Thank you, Subi, my cousin in Jamaica, who is oh my God, she's a whiz at creating music. So if anybody has anything they need some music produced, reach out to me. I'll connect you with her. She is amazing. She did my theme song in 2 hours and sent it to me on WhatsApp. Lee was my first guest on February 9th. And as I said, he passed away 5 days later on Valentine's Day, February 14th. Myself and a lot of his friends got to surprise him during my live stream and my inaugural episode, including Tim, and to tell him how much he meant to us and how much he inspired us. Lee made me realize that if we wait for the perfect time, we'll never find ourselves ready. But when the perfect time comes around, we'll be ready for it. And I was ready when I needed it to be. The Podfest family says just start dirty. But thanks to Lee, my start was perfect. It was an honor to honor Lee and to find the right platform to allow myself and Lee's friends to show him love and allow him to view just a sliver of his incredible impact on the colorectal cancer family and community, the Podfest family, and on the world. We often don't know how much we mean to others, but I was able to show and to tell Lee how much he meant to me, and he found ways to make me realize I meant a lot to him as well. He made sure I knew he wanted to see me at Podfest this year to say, see you later. I don't believe in goodbyes, especially when it comes to Lee. I once again want to shout out Chris and thank him for inspiring Lee to use his amazing voice as a podcaster. I want to thank Zach because he was Lee's best friend and the best friend that Lee deserves, because Lee only deserves the best of the best and better than the best. And that's who Zach is. I want to say to Margie, Elliot, and Andrew again that Lee spoke about all of you all of the time. And especially with his sons, he glowed every time he mentioned them or his grandkids. Um, Linda, you are the best caregiver I've ever seen in my entire time in this community. One of the best. And my bar is set really high as a survivor. But the fact that you chose to be a caregiver of a cancer survivor a second time, even to choose to do it the first time is a special person, but you chose to do it twice, already knowing what grief is and being a widow is. And I admire you and I appreciate you for that so much. Thank you for being by Lee's side, being his sidekick, being his ride or die, being his everything, his support and his encourager and his cheerleader. Don't think that the world didn't see. And for being there for him no matter what, in sickness and in health, and even past death. I want to thank Lee again for encouraging me to go out of my comfort zone. It has made me not only find myself, but also it makes me happier than I can ever imagine. It's doing this. It's doing showing up with Tim on Wednesdays. This has become my happy place. And I show up no matter how shitty of a day I'm having. Lee has inspired and given hope to myself and so many others up until the end and even after. He will always be my guiding light, and I hope I can inspire others and give them hope as Lee has always done for me. After all, I have to make sure that I work extra hard so I can meet him up there. Lee was the best friend I could have ever had. He'll forever be my light in the dark and my hero, even if he hated that word. I will love him for always, forever, and beyond. And even after that. I also, since I'm all emotional, I want to thank Tim again for my birthday and for being here for me tonight for this. It was totally impromptu. And I also want to thank everyone who came to showing up to surprise me. Um, it was the best birthday present I could have ever received. And I want to thank everyone who posted on my timeline, texted me, called me, WhatsApped me, all of it. I haven't been able to catch up yet. I will get to everyone. I promise. I'm really big on that, on reading everyone's messages and trying to at least say a thank you and an I love you. But I want to say it here that I love everyone and I'm really grateful for everyone that I have in my life, and especially you, Tim. I love you, my bro fam.
Should we wrap up the show?
Sorry?
Should we wrap up the show?
Yeah, I don't know how to wrap it up after all of that.
We say thank you. Well, you just thanked everybody, right?
I did. I do want everyone to tune in next week. I don't know who my guest will be yet, but I will be here next week. Um, Also in the comments, just I'm gonna put up a survey to figure out what's the right time for people, because I know 6 is kind of early, 8 is kind of late, maybe. So if I'm gonna do a survey and I'm gonna leave it up for a while so that people can give me input on what time they think would get me able to have everyone here and so it can be interactive. Um Also, I'm always looking for guests. Please email me at Blue Couch Chat. Well, or email me at Blue Couch Chat, but not at Blue Couch Chat. But my email is bluecouchchat@outlook.com. Also message me on Facebook, but the best way to definitely make sure that you will be put on my calendar is at the email bluecouchchat@outlook.com. Um, I have made the promise, I'm saying it again, that anyone who wants to share their story will have this platform to share their story and have their voice heard. It's why I created this place and this space in this platform. And the only thing is that it might be a scheduling thing and getting everybody on, but I do want that anyone who wants their story heard is able to share their story and have their voice heard. It is so important. And it's important to me. And I know what it's like to have to fight, to scream from the mountaintops about what we experience and what we go through. Also, remember that you're also always welcome to be on Tim's show, my show, um, that I co-host. We switched roles tonight. We'll probably do this regularly, I hope, because I love working with Tim. Tim is just amazing. He makes everything so easy. And I yeah, if you want to be a show, if you want to be a guest and show up on Showing Up Perspectives on Cancer, please reach out to me or Tim, and we'd love to have you as a guest. So
You
you
would.
have two places to share your story and make sure you're heard.
Yes, be our guest, just like the song from what Disney movie was that? Beauty and the Beast, right?
Yes,
Be
be our
our
guest.
guest. Be our
Be
guest.
our guest.
Okay. Anyway.
Are you Lumiere? That was my favorite character, was Lumiere, the candlestick.
No, but this is Chris the Rubber Chicken. Is that in Beauty and the Beast?
No, but I love Chris. We know that I love Chris. Inside joke.
Yeah.
Shout out Andrea.
Yes.
All right. Inside joke.
Anyway.
So I just want to say, everyone, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for supporting me. Thank you for loving me. Thank you for trusting me. I hope our show tonight helped you. As you know, everything is unscripted on this show. I know that makes Tim a little uncomfortable, maybe, but
Yes.
but I just find that that's the best way to be authentic, transparent, vulnerable, and real and genuine, and just be me. And
Yes.
you never know what's going to come out of my mouth, as Tim has found out. And
that is
even
true.
on his show as his co-host, I'm a little unpredictable sometimes. But thank you for tuning in, everyone. Thank you for everyone who hit us up in the comments. If you weren't able to catch us, but you're catching the replay, thank you. And please feel free to reach out to us, as we said, for any kind of support or advice or anything at all. We're here for you, and we mean it. Please like, please comment, please especially share, and please definitely subscribe. That is the best way you can support me. I am doing this not for me, but I'm doing this for all of you. And that's the best way to show me that you appreciate what I'm doing for you. And it would mean the world to me. So thank you. I love y'all. I love you, Tim, my bro fam. Is there anything else you want to say to wrap up the show? Because I'm giving you the last word.
Oh, shahola.
Definitely. And I want you to remember, self-care is healthcare. Healthcare is self-care. And taking care of your mental health is the best way you can love yourself. That's my parting words. Now, get out and thrive, GOAT, and fully own your opportunities, because I'm going to fully own my opportunities, FOMO, until I see you next week. Love y'all.
Bye, y'all.